Hello, hello. Welcome back to the show. I'm Nicole Holland, your host, and today I'm joined by Raj Jana. He is the founder and chief brewer at Java Press Coffee Company, a brand that creates products to transform your favorite coffee ritual into extraordinary daily experiences. Since launching Java Press in 2015, Raj has helped over 180,000 unique customers use coffee as a vehicle to achieve more daily fulfillment, growing the company one growing the company 10,000% since 2015. He's also the host of Stay Grounded, a weekly podcast that shares lessons from inspiring guests to help listeners achieve more fulfillment, success, and happiness in daily life. Thanks so much for joining me, Raj.
Super excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Nicole.
For sure. So before we start digging into kind of your history and how it
Yeah,
came to be, can you tell us a little bit more about what's going on today with Java Press? And when you say you create products to transform your favorite coffee ritual into an extraordinary daily experience, can you just kind of give my listeners a little more clarity around what that looks like?
yeah, of course. I'm the chief brewing officer at Java Press, which is just a fancy title I gave myself when I started the company. And I started it a couple of years ago, September of 2015. And Our first product was a manual coffee grinder, um, which we designed, and it's still our best-selling product. But at the time, it was just we were creating products to help people drink better coffee, and that was pretty much the mission of the company, what we did, how we moved, and how we served our customers. And then so while I was building my company, I had a mentor who worked 37 years for the same company, and with about 3 months left until retirement, he had a heart attack and passed. And I remember when that happened, sort of made me redefine everything that I was doing with the business. And I didn't just want to sell coffee products anymore. I didn't just want to make people drink better coffee. I wanted to remind people that you can choose to live life today. You can choose to wake up today, and you can choose to approach any ritual, anything you're doing with zest and passion. And so that's when we sort of changed the company, the way our products, they're still the same products. So we had manual coffee grinders, we have French presses, we have pour overs, we have our own line of really fresh roasted coffee. But what changed in that moment was the intention that went into every product and the product experience and the way we communicate with customers and the way our brand feels on arrival, the way the coffee smells when you open it, the stories that come about the farmers and the people they're impacting. And we do a lot of work with Make-A-Wish. And so we've essentially created a brand experience that goes beyond just coffee. And so when we say we create products to help transform an ordinary or a favorite coffee ritual into an extraordinary daily experience, what we're really doing is we're using existing products, existing rituals that people would already be going through, and infusing those rituals with mindfulness, gratitude, happiness, intention, positivity, clarity, storytelling, and a lot of different brand and a lot of different authentic messaging and storytelling and just concepts that can help people essentially tap into what's going on right in front of them, as opposed to almost like just viewing coffee as all right, I'm going to hit my button, get my coffee, and be on my way. We're essentially slowing down the coffee ritual and adding more to it so that people can use that coffee ritual as a gateway to experiencing more fulfillment in every part of life. So that's essentially what we do now. That's what we help people with. We infuse micro moments of positivity and just abundance gratitude into something they're already experiencing, and then which then allows them to experience not only their coffee with more passion, but they get to just go forward with their day with more passion. So
I
that's kind of
love
what we
it.
do.
Yeah. And I have to say too, the day we're recording, happy anniversary. I think
Thank
you
you.
have your zest for infusing passion and positivity and generosity and all of the good stuff, all the good feels. Was that forever, or was that something that sort of happened after you met your mentor, or like at what point in your life were you just born a child who was like, this is who you were always, or did something happen along the way that you reevaluated and kind of shifted what you, I don't know if you'd call it legacy or mission driven, or what you would call it, but
Yeah.
can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm grateful to have very supportive and inspiring parents. Both my parents are givers. My dad supports 3 families back in India. My mom, same way, same experience, just with charities and different people. So I've always kind of been raised in a way where I've seen my parents just give a lot back, and it always just felt right. If you have anything to give, you should give it, whether it's money or experience or time or just whatever you can to help. So I think that from an early age, that sort of set the standard for just what I thought was right in the world, just because I've seen my parents do it, and that's really my only frame of reference growing up. So when I was in college, I started a fraternity at the University of Texas, and we had a big charity component. We did bone marrow registry drives, and by my senior year, we were hosting some of the largest drives in Texas and the United States, and it was. I just saw the impact, the direct impact that had. But I remember when I graduated college, and I started working. I used to be a petroleum engineer in my past life. And I guess my past life, I'm only just turned 27. So I guess like
That's
last
your
year.
past life of like 20.
Yeah. Like, so I started Java Press while I was an engineer. And so I would start off as a little side hustle. So I remember when I started working full time I used to work for a big oil company. And, that was the first time I really was missing that, like that impact piece. And it wasn't just impacting others. It was almost like feeling that sense of fulfillment within. When I started a fraternity, it was fantastic because I could, I pushed myself to start something new. I saw how much I grew, and then I was able to help other people the way I wanted to help them. And that was a feeling that I couldn't really create as an engineer working full time in corporate America. So when I started Java Press, initially it was just to make enough money to have that be my full-time job. And then when Jerry, my mentor, passed, it was almost like hyperdrive. I was like, oh my God, I have to do this really, really, really fast. And we became successful really, really, really fast. I mean, we went from 0 to 6 figures in, I think, like 9 months, 8 or 9 months after that experience. And I didn't know why we were so successful, but all I knew is that I needed the money. Then all of a sudden I had the money, and the money didn't give me what I wanted. And so I remember that was around October of 2016. I left to go to a conference out in Denver called Underground. And I met an individual there who hosts the conference. His name is Yannick Silver. And Yannick has an amazing mastermind group called Maverick. And at the time, Yannick was launching his first book, which was a book called Evolved Enterprise. And this was about how you can reimagine your business and reconnect back to what you're selling to make a bigger impact. I remember it was like he gave the talk, and then he gave me a book, and he was like, he just he was giving away free books. And I don't know why in that moment the light bulb hit, but on the plane ride back, I read his book from start to finish. And I was immediately like, oh my God, this is exactly what I need, because I'd gone through and we were making this money and I just wasn't happy. And I realized it's because I wasn't connected. I wasn't creating that internal fulfillment for myself, whether that was through giving or impacting customers or delivering an experience that makes people happier. Whatever way I was using business to impact, I wasn't really doing it. I was using business to impact myself. And so when I came back from Denver, that trip, I essentially went back into the drawing board. That December, I went back, I did a ton of journaling, and I kind of looked back at my life, and I was like, define these trigger points that, the things that define me and who I was. And after that is when I realized that we were going to help people use coffee to live happier lives. Like that was the shift. And we were going to do that through Stay Grounded, which Stay Grounded started off as something we were doing under Java Press. It was a lifestyle mission. It was a community. It was an email newsletter. It was a product experience. And we did that for about a year, just continuously delivering impact, and we saw the impact it had, and then Stay Grounded evolved into the podcast and what it is now. But in the beginning, that was really the trigger point. One, it was those micro experiences of having my mentor die, and all those growing up experiences of seeing my parents and all these subliminal almost influences in my life. But then the trigger was me being successful, not feeling happy, given a book. Book changed my life. Company changed. Raj changed. Raj is happy. Raj gives. And that's kind of how it just kind of happened over time.
Very cool. And so you'd lost your mentor. You found another mentor in Yannick. You also, I believe, are mentored by Damon James. Is that right?
So Damon John,
Damon John, sorry.
Well, I won a mentorship with Damon last year, and that was a really cool experience. Applied for it. I think there were like 2,000 applicants, and they picked 4 winners. So I guess I was doing something right for him to want to meet up with me. So they flew me out, and I got to meet up with Damon and just run my business by him and get his feedback and see what I can do to improve. And it's been fun. I mean, it kind of goes back to the shift in the mission, like the second I shifted the mission to being and infusing my own personality and my own character and the things that are important to me into the culture, into the brand, into the community. It's almost like the right partnerships started aligning and the wrong ones just started going away. Like the wrong customers stopped buying from us. The right ones started recommending us. The right partnerships, the right suppliers, the right, just everything just started aligning. And it turned into almost like this filter for my business where I was able to fast track certain relationships, one being something with Damon, and then, just lose other relationships that weren't serving. And it was amazing. I mean, I think the second you start showing up authentically in business, the second you start showing up fully as yourself, and then using business as almost the microphone or the vehicle to go and make an impact in the way that you want to make an impact, just think everything clears out of the way. The cobwebs get out of the way. The vision is clear. You can just see the road ahead to where you want to go. And then the right people start jumping in the car as you're driving along the way.
I love that. So can you talk about, see, I want to ask you something, and I think, my gosh, this has all happened so fast. You're so young, and it's amazing, and it's nice because you have a very different filter from a lot of my other guests and from me. And how did you find the experience of recognizing that relationships that weren't serving you, be it customers that were challenging or people maybe who worked for you or people that you had associated with, when you were recognizing, okay, or were you recognizing that, okay, all these things are lining up, this is great, and all of these things that are not serving me or have not been serving me are falling by the wayside? Did you have any resistance to that? I hear from a lot of people when they're moving forward, they many times feel like they can't let go, or they don't want to let go of relationships or people who've been kind of anchors or important in their life, but haven't been serving their future vision. Do you know what I mean there?
Yeah. So when I revamped the mission, I took a leaf out of another one of my e-mentors, but he might be a mutual friend, actually, Cameron Harold. And so Cameron has this brilliant concept of vivid vision. And I remember I saw that concept almost 2 years ago when I was revamping all of this. And the concept of a vivid vision is having a 7 to 10 page document which explains exactly what your company is going to look like in 3 years. And I, at the time, was pretty young. I was pretty lean too, so I didn't have a lot of employees. I had a couple of employees. Both of them are not with us today. And For me, once I created that vision and I put it on paper, I mean, I was talking about how much money we were going to be making in 3 years, how many employees we were going to have, what the benefits were going to look like, who our customers were, what's the type of products and concepts and different things we were going to be doing. And they were loose concepts. They weren't like concrete, this is the thing we're going to be doing. It was just like, this is what I envision. This is where I want to go. And I knew what I wanted. I knew what I had. And then at that point, it was just drawing parallels and dots to get there. So when I started working out of, all right, where do I want to be in 3 years as opposed to what am I going to do next month? I started having this alignment where even the business decisions I was making, I was starting to look at them through, all right, I need to do this right now. How can I do this to where it becomes an asset in 3 years? And so when I started doing that, I started looking at even relationships. Like, all right, if I was having a vendor or somebody and I saw that I needed him in the meantime, I would look at it and say, okay, this relationship isn't working. I need to find another relationship while I maintain the short term so that I can transition to that point when I get there down the line. But without knowing where I wanted to go, without knowing what that end zone or what that end goal looked like, I couldn't make those decisions. So having that lens out into the future just allowed me to make better short-term decisions, and more sound. They weren't as emotional, because I think that's a big mistake I used to make. And I imagine a lot of people do is, when they're tied, when their back's against the wall, when they have to make payroll, when they have these decisions that they have to make as a business, it's almost like you make very emotional ones and you're tied to it, like whether it's because you're too close to the problem or what. But my hack for essentially removing myself from the problem, being that close to the problem, was just knowing where I wanted to be in 3 years. Because now, anytime I felt emotional or clouded, I'd just go back to my vision and I'd look at it and then I'd say, okay, this is what needs to happen for that to happen. And then that allowed me to make quicker decisions or more sound decisions without actually losing out on the short-term value of said decisions.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for breaking that down and sharing it. Um, so yeah, I feel like, oh my gosh, what did I want to ask you? There was something you touched on that just triggered something for me, and I'm at a loss right now. But um, so everything you've been doing then, as you've been growing the company 10,000% since 2015, which is just such an amazing accomplishment and such a short time. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
As you've been doing that, you've been building relationships with those other folks who are in alignment with your vision and your goals. Have you done anything specific to seek those people out, or literally is it like they just come knocking on your door? And when you come across them, how do you know what to do with that? I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with. And I know I get a lot of questions from people, since I'm a connector and I find it very easy and enjoyable to build relationships with people that I'm fascinated by, that I'm inspired by. And I see people that inspire me and who I think are magnificent, and they are challenged by that. So can you talk a little bit about that? Is there, like, how do you build these relationships with people and turn them into mutually beneficial ones, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one thing I do, I put myself in environments where I'm likely to meet people that can not only help me grow professionally, but also help me grow personally. I'm always looking for personal growth before business growth, because I'm a huge believer in the idea that if you grow who you are, eventually when you meet the right person, you're going to be able to add value in a way that is going to make it a mutually beneficial relationship. And so when I go anywhere, whether it's a conference, a networking event, a mastermind, it's always about how can I just learn and grow. And so I approach these situations in these environments with an air of curiosity. Now, when I go into these places with an air of curiosity, all of a sudden I become intrigued behind the people I'm meeting. And I don't know, if anyone's ever come up to you, Nicole, and just acted super curious about who you are, how do you feel?
It's so rare, Raj. I mean, honestly, it really is so rare, right? It's like usually people come up and it's not about the other party. It's about what they want and what they're
Yep.
looking for. It's not it's very rare for somebody to come up and truly being interested in getting to know me without an ulterior motive. Is
Yeah.
that like weird or is that normal for you?
No, no, no. Well, no, no, no. I mean, I've met so many people that are the same way. So you're not alone. And that's a feeling. And so when you go into these events and these places and these essentially, like when you just trust the fact that whoever I'm going to meet is going to be interesting, what makes this person interesting, and you go in there with an air of curiosity. Now you make that person feel good, which then makes you remembered. You automatically, they remember who you are because of something they felt when they were talking to you. And then, so when you lead with that, all of a sudden they become curious about you. And when they become curious about you, now it turns into a conversation because you broke bread on the grounds of simply being interested in one another. You went past the accolades, the business, the money, the networking. You just went in and said, huh, you just connected on a very human level. And so that's how I personally have been able to make and keep connections. And that's also how I've been able to filter it out. Like if I'm going in first on a human level to connect, the wrong people aren't going to connect with me. The wrong people aren't going to want to work with me. The wrong people. I would much rather find somebody who's just a perfect fit to connect on and then find a way to make that work. Like whether it's like, and I've done so many deals with people where it's like, oh my gosh, man, you're amazing. Like we got to do something together, and we'll get on a call and we'll try and figure it out. It's not the right fit, but we'll keep in touch. And then all of a sudden later on, it's like a perfect fit, and then we'll just jump on it because we've already vetted each other. And it's actually like, so I just got done doing my first stand-up set in New York City, and the guy who organized that show is a really good friend of mine named Matt Kazam. I met Matt at a mastermind event almost 2 years ago, and we sat next to each other at a dinner. Same approach. We just leaned in, talked about who he is, what he does. He was a comedian. I was so interested because I don't meet a lot of comedians. And then he was talking to me, and I was like, "Hey, I have this coffee company. Is what I'm doing." And he was like, "Oh my God, man! Like I got this idea for you. Let's run it by it." So we jump on a call, and he talks about potentially, running a trade show for us and doing all this. And it wasn't the right fit, but we were like, all right, let's move forward. And then later on, he thought of someone else who would be a really good fit for me. He connected me with him. It wasn't a good fit, moved on. But then earlier this year, I had a big speaking event, and I posted it on Facebook, and I was like, hey, this is a lot of fun. And he's like, oh, Raj, I didn't know you were speaking and on a speaking tour. Let's catch up. Hadn't talked to him in a year. Turns out he's working on a new program that helps aspiring speakers use stand-up comedy as a way to make their speaking better. And so he was like, hey, I'm trying to do this new guinea pig program where I'm taking people who don't know anything about stand-up and putting them on a stage in 5 weeks. Are you interested? And I said, yeah, I'm super interested, because I trusted him. I knew he was going to deliver. I knew the type of person he was. And I knew he wasn't going to stop until he made sure I was happy with the product, because I had vetted that on the first meeting. So I think that most people are too short-sighted with their relationships. They're trying too hard to turn whatever hour they put in networking into an immediate transaction. When in the age of social media, in the age of digital connection, in the age where we can literally reach out to anyone at any given point, at any given time, at a finger snap, I think it's all about the long game. And I think that combining that attitude of being genuinely interested with trust that somehow, if they're the right people, they're going to help me get to my long-term vision, allows me to look past the short-term relationship I'm making and just be present with whatever I'm experiencing in the moment and just trusting that it's going to work out anyways.
So good. Thank you for sharing that. Definitely so much value. Um, Another curiosity I have is your fraternity. You were focused on I mean, you did the bone marrow, and your fraternity was focused on service. Is that right?
No, it was everything. But I definitely infused service into the fraternity
Culture.
because yeah, it was just a culture. It was something that we were able to connect on. It made it easy for my parents to pay for dues. Like just in many, many ways, charity was a positive influence. I mean, it was just like, I mean, and especially when you're in college, you're looking for that one thing to help you stand out on your resume. And service is always something that stood out. So if we had the control, me and my other fraternity brothers, we had the control. We started this thing together. We had the ability to essentially make it mean what we wanted it to mean. And so the service aspect came in because we knew that this was something that would, one, benefit us, obviously, because we were young college kids and that's all we thought about. But also, we saw the benefits it had on the people around us. We saw the impact it had on ourselves, just being able to get people excited about helping others. We saw the ripples that had. I think off of that one bone marrow drive our senior year, I think we saved like 6 kids. And so like 6 people were matches, and that was the whole thing. And so when you hear about stuff like that, it's and the residual impact of it. I mean, I still get emails from drives we did years ago, people saying that, hey, somebody matched from here. And it's like, it's just this gift that keeps on giving. I think that's how just the idea of giving back and impacting, I think it's just something that continues to grow. You never know who you're going to impact at any given moment, whether it's through this podcast or through somebody just hearing you out somewhere, just the way you're navigating through the world. I just think that looking life through the lens of impact allows you to just feel good at any given moment. You can be having an awful day and all of a sudden get an email from somebody saying you saved somebody's life. And that might just be the thing that turns your life around. And so you just never know how you're going to impact people and how that impact's going to impact you back.
Indeed. Definitely chills. Like to know that something you've created has literally saved lives is pretty powerful. Um, I recently interviewed, I believe somebody you know as well, Ron Kablundi. I always say his name wrong. Kablundi, Ron, um, from Generosity Feeds, and we talked about being a force for good, and he's very passionate about businesses aligning with, excuse me, businesses aligning with causes. And you mentioned before Make-A-Wish Foundation. Is there, so obviously charity's always been important to you and to your family from a very early age. Is there something specific that you look at from a business standpoint when you're looking at which causes to support with your philanthropy?
Fantastic question, and not one that gets asked enough. So kudos to you. The to me, I think that just first of all, businesses are for profit. So to believe that businesses can partner with charities just for a purely altruistic reason is, I think, unreasonable. Like that's not sustainable. If your business isn't profitable, you can't help people. So to me, when we were looking at Make-A-Wish, I was really looking for a charity partner that could also couple with marketing, branding, messaging, and mission alignment. Because I wanted every single dollar we spent in charity. It's essentially, I wanted to take our advertising spend, and instead of spending it on useless bots and algorithms, I wanted to give it to charity. So that was the first way that we really sort of adopted this mindset of where can we tighten up our finances to where if we just automate certain things, we can just donate the difference. And so that's how it worked. And so we made charity a huge part of our brand mission. We tied that into Stay Grounded. And so I remember when I was looking at charities, for me, the reason we picked Make-A-Wish, I remember, this was like a couple of years ago, and I remember asking the local Texas chapter to give me like a cost breakdown on how much these wishes cost, and like how can we get involved? Do we just give you a check, or can we choose the wishes? And they were like, oh, you guys can choose the wishes, and I thought that was really cool. And I asked them, like, so what kind of wishes are these? Like, are we sending kids to go meet The Rock? Or like, that's all you see on TV. It's like, they turn this city into Batman, or like, It's like all these crazy extravagant wishes. And to my surprise, I found out that, I mean, like some overwhelming amount of kids were asking for like Chuck E. Cheese parties with their friends and like bedroom makeovers and trips to Disney World. And I mean, that broke me. I mean, here these are these kids who have literally billionaires lining up to give them anything they want in the world. And all they want is a trip to Chuck E. Cheese with their best friends and their families. And I remember in the moment, it was like, that was such a humbling reminder in the power of all of us to just live a happier life today. We don't need lots of money. We don't need to live tomorrow. We can choose to be happy today with what we have. And those kids were a daily reminder for us. And so with the new mission of helping people use coffee to live happier lives by just focusing in on what's in front of them, it just was such a good brand fit. Like every single dollar that went to promoting that message just went back to being something that, just made employees happier. It made our customers happier. It made so much sense. Like I see so many companies, they're in like the paper business, but then all of a sudden they're taking care of vets. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. If there's a personal story and a reason why you're doing that, but that story needs to be communicated, because otherwise there's no way it can become a movement. See, the beautiful thing about using business to change the world is the idea that it can become a movement. It can become something that people talk about. It can become a really easy way to just share ideas. Like Tom's is a great example. Tom's is buy one set of shoes, they donate a pair of shoes to kids in Africa. That's such a simple, it's like, oh, look at these shoes I buy. For every pair of shoes I buy, they donate shoes. That's such a natural thing. If Tom's would instead donate 10% to vets or to any other like pets or to anything like dog rescues or whatever, right? It wouldn't be a natural thing for customers to remember, one, because they're inundated with information, and two, it's not a natural thing for them to just share. It's like, so it has to be on brand, and it has to be like charity can be a beautiful way to use customers as a way to reach more people. And if it's thought about in that regard, it can now become a platform that customers can use to not only recommend your products, but to become raving fans. And that actually goes to improve the bottom line, which then allows you to help more people. And that's what creates a sustainable giving model that actually does change the world, because you don't go out of business in the process.
I love this. Thank you so much for breaking that down. I know that as you were talking, that really just clicked a couple things for me, and hopefully so many of our listeners as well. Yeah, thank you. That's amazing.
You're welcome.
So, yeah, like, where do you see things going in the next 3 years with your vivid vision? Like, is this something that you've continuously done after that first go, or yeah, like I'm just
Good
curious if
question.
you'd like to share anything about kind of what's on tap for Stay Grounded and Java Press.
Yeah, so I haven't changed my vision for JavaPress. A good mentor of mine told me to not change the vision too often. Otherwise, it's not a vision. It's just something you change very often whenever you have a new opportunity come your way. The vision is supposed to be a lens,
Okay.
and the lens is supposed to be set in time, because and there's circumstances that change. Obviously, there's partners that might dissolve. There's market changes that might happen. So there's circumstances that allow for a vision to change. But for me, I have JavaPress's vision as JavaPress's vision. And then I'm personally now writing a Stay Grounded vision, which talks about what that's going to look like in 3 years, what the podcast is going to be, who's going to be on the podcast, who we're partnering with, what our listeners are doing, who they are, where they are in the world. Like, just to as much detail as possible, just think that out. And I think it's I'm a big believer in the power of visualization and when you can visualize, like, and when you think that far ahead and you actually visualize it, that ends up being something that you're like, oh my God, that can actually happen, because it doesn't sound as crazy.
Yeah.
Especially when you put it down on paper. When you take something you dream up and you put it down on paper, now all of a sudden your brain starts to actualize what you just thought up. And when it's on paper, it's like, oh my God, this is so doable. I can do this one step at a time. So for me, I visualize every day. I try and dream out what I want pretty often. But when it comes to a grand vision for something, I usually will get that done on one go and just dream out as far into the future as I can and let that be a compass that guides my decisions in the near term. So all it is just a compass. I don't think you need multiple compasses, because I truly believe that even if you tried rewriting as many visions as you'd wanted, they're going to be within like 5% of each other. Like the compasses are all still going to point north. Like your heart, your soul, whatever you're really passionate about doing, whatever is really important to you is going to come out when you're visioning. And so you might have tweaks, but I don't think that the overall impact you want to make and the overall goals are really going to change. Like my JavaPress mission it hasn't changed, but it's birthed new things more than it's changing existing ones. So it's almost like each vision just turns into like almost like a foundation for the next one. And you just keep building on top of it, but I don't think it would ever change.
That's fantastic. I recently listened to your interview with Jesse Elder on the podcast, and it was just so much fun to hear also from him about visualization. And
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but at time of recording here, are you about 1 year into the podcast?
Yeah. So 1 year. We just released at the time of recording, we just released our 50th episode. So that's kind of cool.
Very exciting.
And I'm coming around on my year anniversary in about a couple of weeks, actually. Wow. It's funny how you just like, when you just show up every single day and you just show up and you just try to be better than the last every single day. It's funny how time flies.
Yes. Well, happy podversary.
Thank you.
And is it, can you share anything about kind of what's on the radar for Stay Grounded, anything that my audience should know about? And I just want to give you a plug over there. I'm so impressed with, your interviews and also what you guys are doing to repurpose content and to market. And it's like, I think I reached out to you with about Rhonda Britton's video that you did. I was like so impressed because, just always looking at how to improve, even when the vision is sort of the same or the vision is clear, always looking for those opportunities, at least I do, for inspiration from others that are doing things right to say, oh, that's such a good idea. I wonder, how we can adapt that.
Well, I'd love to give you feedback. So for one, this is actually something we're starting now. Every single interview we do, I actually have a tripod set up right next to me with my phone that records me recording the interview. So that turns into, just turns into content, like kind of Gary Vee style. It's literally documenting this. So even if you don't have like a full-on production team to follow you around with like stuff, you can really easily set things up to where you're getting multiple angles and multiple ways to just document, right? So with just content creation for me, it starts off with, I don't even want to steal from Gary Vee. He's just such a ninja at this. He is the legend of content creation. And there's a great slide deck out there, actually. I think he put it out for free on LinkedIn. And I'll send that to you. It's so good. Literally what he talks about is creating pillar content, so for you and I, it would be podcasts, right? So you've got these podcast pillar content. And then from there, that turns into articles and transcripts and trailers and sound bites and everything, but it starts from here. So 1 hour of audio can turn into 2 weeks worth of content. And then once you do that a couple times, you can systemize it to where every single hour of audio automatically turns into 20 to 30 pieces of content. And so it takes time to get there. Obviously, it's not an overnight solution, but knowing that that exists is very aspirational for me in general, because it allows me to say, all right, I'm not Gary Vee yet, and this guy's doing it 10x me right now. What can I do each week with each episode to get one step closer to what Gary Vaynerchuk is doing? So it's a great target just to say kind of what he does and how you can do it. But for Stay Grounded, really, we're investing a lot of time, energy, money into the community. We have our first, honestly, if there's anything, just check out the podcast. They're great conversations with amazing people that are doing inspiring things around the world. So if anything, that would be awesome. But yeah, we're working on our first digital products to kind of, what is the Stay Grounded philosophy, and how does that approach to life, whether it's through business, impact, personal fulfillment, how do you sort of navigate these different waters through the same lens? And that's based on a lot of personal experience that I'm pulling into the podcast and beyond. And so that's kind of what's in the pipeline for Stay Grounded. It's really exciting. It's just exciting because I started the podcast, just as a way to, one, build the Stay Grounded messaging even more around JavaPress. And over time, it actually turned into my favorite thing to do, where I get to just have conversations from people that are that I want to learn from. So these are my mentors that I've studied in years past, or they wrote books that changed my life. And now I have a platform where I can reach out to them and, hey, would you like to mentor me for an hour, AKA be on a podcast interview? And so I'm now getting to ask questions that I'm personally curious about. So it's it turns into a learning experience for me too, which goes back to what we were talking about with building relationships. Is, I'm kind of taking that same attitude that I have in person and applying that to the digital world. If by just showing up with pure curiosity about who this person is, how they interact, how they dance to the world, what are they passionate about, what are they excited about, how did they even come up with these amazing ideas? All of these things just turn into fuel for a relationship that lasts a really long time. And so that's kind of where Stay Grounded is. It's teaching me, it's teaching others, and it's giving back in amazing ways.
Amazing. Raj, thank you so much for your time today and for your inspiration and for sharing your wisdom. Before we say goodbye, please let my audience know, number one, how they can continue the conversation with you. Of course, they're Stay Grounded, but what specific action would you like them to take to continue this conversation? And number two, any final words of wisdom that you'd like to leave us with?
Yeah. Well, like I said, you already know about the podcast. You can join my newsletter, which I send an email out once or twice a week about random musings that I have. And they're usually pretty left field. So there's that. You can just go to rajjana.com. I'm all over social. So I'm mostly active on Instagram though. So Raj_Jana. You can follow me there. And what would I leave you guys with? Just do everything you've got with everything you've got. It's, I think life is so much more fun when you're trying and actively trying to infuse fulfillment into whatever you're doing. And if you look at life through that lens, whether it's work, it's family, it's business, it's relationships, it's friendships, it's self-growth and learning and bucket list. Whatever it is, however you want to move through life, if you just start looking through the lens of how can I experience everything that this life has to offer, I think you're going to come up with some pretty interesting answers. So,
fantastic. Well, thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you for having me.